Fam Hi, family. I'm Helen. I'm an alcoholic. I live in Hot Springs Village, Arkansas. My home group is the Eastgate group in Hot Springs Village, and my sobriety date is April 9th of 1985. And my 57th wedding anniversary is June 24th, 2025. So that means it's today. 57 years. So, this is where we want to be for our anniversary, because we would not be having anniversaries if it wasn't for Alcoholics Anonymous. Bubba said the last 40 years have been a lot better than the first 17, and that's no joke, because we pretty much made a disaster of our lives, um, made it extremely difficult for our family, our kids, my mother, who helped with my family. And I grew up in faith, in a religious faith, and it seemed really good for me for a long time. But when it got more difficult, when I got into alcoholism, I lost that contact and I wasn't able to get it back. And until Alcoholics Anonymous, until I was given the gift of being able to be reborn, reborn into spirit. And I have been on this meeting less frequently than I would like to, but it has always been an incredible, beautiful experience. And I thank you for providing this 11th step meeting, because I don't think there's anything more important. And so I picked We Alcoholics Are Undisciplined. So we let God discipline us in the simple way we've just outlined. And I don't know about you, but discipline has never been my favorite word. And when I first started using pages 86, 87, and 88, which was right in the beginning of my sobriety, because these pages were given to me by my sponsor. As Bubba said last week, we read these pages, but we didn't understand that we were supposed to follow the directions that were given on these pages. And so this has been a process. These pages in the big book, for me, have been timeless. I was able to get so much from them when I first got sober, and now I get so much from them every day. The thing is, my life changes every day because of this program and the freedom that I found here. My conception of God changes every day as well. And that is such a freedom and such a gift, that I can have a new experience of God every day. And, I like to look at the way that the 11th step is worded in the steps. sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. My goodness, there is so much in that one statement. You know, that first word, sought, you know, we become seekers if we are pursuing this way of life in Alcoholics Anonymous. And Bill says at the bottom of 85, step 11 suggests prayer and meditation. And then he says he's going to give us some valuable suggestions. So the discipline that we are going to experience is the connection that we are going to establish with God. And the way that we do that is through prayer and meditation. And, you know, I never quite understood why step 10 and step 11 at night had pretty much the same format. You know, we were looking for selfishness, dishonesty, resentment, and fear. And I never quite understood that. And I've had wonderful teachers in Alcoholics Anonymous, and one who cleared that up for me was my friend Katie. And she said that step 10 was the step that she took with her sponsor. Step 11 at night was the step she took with God. And I started practicing that. I started practicing the 11th step at night, reviewing my day, and it says constructively reviewing. So that means we're going to construct a picture. And it has spending that particular time with God, talking to him about my shortcomings, the joys of my day, whatever has happened today. I love Chuck C. He was one of the first ones to talk that I heard talk about step 11. And I was looking for it before the meeting, and I couldn't find it in a new pair of glasses because he's all over the place. So, but basically what he says is that, well, he calls God Dad, and he says he goes into his closet at night, and he says, look, Dad, he said, I got to be with other alcoholics today. They asked me to share with them, and it was just beautiful. And I thank you for that opportunity, because isn't that a beautiful thing for a guy like me to be able to do? And then he said, you know, but while I was there, of course, my ego came up, and I got to bragging about this and that. And that was a terrible thing for a guy like me to do when I've been given such a gift. And I ask for your forgiveness. And he said, then he gives the whole day to God, the good and the not so good. And he is able to start tomorrow with a clean slate. And I never had a clean slate before I got to Alcoholics Anonymous. It never happened. So, you know, that was a powerful lesson for me. And he also talks about our problem being conscious separation and our solution being conscious unity. And conscious unity and conscious contact to me are side by side in our seeking for spiritual growth. And so I also have my friend Erica, who gave her sponsees a spiral notepad with these questions on it with space in the middle so that they could answer every one of these, like, where was I resentful? Was I selfish? How was I dishonest? Where was I afraid? And she goes through all of these, and she puts in 360 pages so that they can fill out these questions every day. And I just think that's the coolest thing. And she was kind enough to give me a copy of that, and I was so grateful because I definitely used it. So that's the discipline of my evening. And yeah, it takes discipline because there are all kind of other distractions. I may have had a big day and I may be exhausted and I just want to veg out, in front of the TV or with a novel or whatever. And the discipline is knowing that this is my gratitude for the gift of sobriety when I follow the directions that are given to me. And then on awakening in our morning, Bub and I do this together. And, I have just been so amazed. And it also is in the night part of Into Action that Bill says over and over and over again, he uses the word thinking, or he asks God to direct our thinking, that it be divorced from self-pity, dishonest, self-seeking motives. He talks about our mental faculties. He talks about God giving us brains to use. He talks about our thought life, and then our thinking being cleared of wrong motives. And that's just in the first paragraph. So he definitely tells us what our problem is. It's what goes on between these two ears of mine. And, I have been, lately I got pretty tangled up with some behavior that I'd rather not talk about tonight. but let me just say this: just because I have 40 years of sobriety does not mean I am immune from being taken over by my ego, by those instincts that have gone haywire in me. And it was pretty upsetting. It was a pretty big deal, and I didn't want to call my sponsor because I didn't, I've always kept secrets all my life, so I would prefer never to tell anybody. But the first thing I did was pick up the phone. Why did I pick up the phone? Because I have become disciplined in this program. And that's just one of the ways that I've been disciplined. But I called her, and I told her my sad story and I was bawling like a big baby. And you know what she did? She started laughing. And you, she is my new sponsor because she and I have shared the same sponsor for 38 years. And our sponsor passed away last year. And so we have been sponsoring each other. And we didn't know how that was going to work out. But we are meeting every Monday. And we have been seeking this spiritual path together. And it's been beautiful. I got to go and be with her. She lives in Longview, Texas, and I got to go be with her this past weekend and give her her 39-year chip. And, it's, I loved being in her home group because, as Bubba said, it was like old time AA. And that for us was a beautiful experience. So, getting back to this morning meditation, well, I'm saying meditation. Actually, every one of these statements in this step 11 is a prayer. On awakening, let us think about the 24 hours ahead. We consider our plans for the day. And, Bubba's favorite thing to say about this is before we begin, we ask God to direct our thinking. So we don't make our plan until we've asked for God to direct our thinking. And that's a prayer. We ask God to, straighten out our thought life. And when in that second statement where we ask God to direct our thinking, I ask him to correct my thinking that has been screwed up, by wrong thinking in the past. So all of this to me is about becoming disciplined. In thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Well, that happens to me pretty much every day. The best way, though, that I can walk through the day is to say, thy will be done, God, not mine. As as we've heard, God has the right of first refusal. I can plan my day, but God always can take over. I love I had a new insight, I guess, in prayer a couple of days ago. Well, actually, it was before I had to tell my story again, and I wasn't feeling, sometimes I feel like I'm really in spirit, and sometimes I'm feeling like I'm kind of dry. And I was feeling kind of dry, and I didn't know what I was going to say. And you know, I said, "All right, Holy Spirit, do your thing." And that's my surrender, my new surrender. Holy Spirit, do your thing. So, and that's basically what I'm doing when I'm giving this day to God. I have a really hard time with relax and take it easy, not struggle, because I'm a gung-ho person. I'm just, ready to, I used to say, self-will would get me running into the wall going 90 with my hair on fire. And that was how I had to surrender. And it's not so bad now. Age helps. But practice of this discipline is the big deal. So part of my relax and take it easy, is taking time to be aware of my body. Because if I pay attention, so much of my day can be filled with this total tightness in my shoulders, in my hands, in my legs, all the way through my body. And that's not relaxing and taking it easy. How am I going to be aware of God's direction if I'm tied up in a knot? So I want to just tell y'all one little story about how this discipline has helped me. It's actually about, it was in the beginning, it was about calling my sponsor every day. And back then we didn't have texting. We didn't have cell phones. All of our phones had cords to them. And when we were 2 years sober, our daughter drowned. We were living at my mother's, and our daughter drowned in the swimming pool. And she was 7, and she was a beautiful little girl. And the helicopters came to pick her up, and they wouldn't let me get on the helicopter. So they said I'd have to follow in a car. And it had started raining. And so I ran in the house to go change my clothes. And as I ran through the living room, I saw that phone, and I automatically picked it up. And I called my sponsor. And I was out of my mind. I was totally out of my mind, with panic and grief. But I stopped and picked up the phone. And that was from the discipline I had learned in Alcoholics Anonymous. By the time we got to the hospital, our sponsors were there. And within an hour or so, all of our AA people were there to be with us and support us. And through the years, prayer and meditation have saved my life. There was a time when I had a mental breakdown. I've had mental issues throughout my life, including in my sobriety. And I had a pretty bad breakdown. And when I got home, I couldn't read, I couldn't pray, I just was not functioning. But Bubba had a sponsee who was having a hard time with prayer and meditation. So he had asked him to come over in the morning and do prayer and meditation with him. And I would sit at the bottom of the stairs and eavesdrop and listen to them do pages 86, 87, and 88, doing the St. Francis prayer. And that was how I started getting connected to God again when I could not connect myself. It is so powerful for us to not only practice this discipline, but share this discipline with the people that we sponsor. And, it's not, it's an ongoing thing. I mean, we all go through those dark nights of the soul, and when we do, we need each other. We need someone to sit with us and carry us through this connection with God. I've been so just intrigued by the phrase in step 11, conscious contact. Conscious contact. I just kind of skipped over those words. I mean, I wanted to get with God every day, yeah, but that conscious as opposed to unconscious, if I'm unconscious, I'm not there. If I'm conscious, I am present. And if I am present, I have a heck of a lot better shot at being aware of God's presence. Also, it's so important that I know where God is, and Bill says it earlier on page 55, deep down in every man, woman, and child is the fundamental idea of God. And so I know that God is here, and it's a lot easier for me to stay in conscious contact when I am aware of God's presence in you. And it changes my whole perspective. We're look the step 11 in the 12 and 12 talks about the treasure trove of spiritual books. And my sponsor, Gwen, that passed on, was a prolific reader of spiritual books. And she got us started on Wednesday night studying different spiritual books. And right now we're studying Wayne Dyer's There's a Spiritual Solution to Every Problem. And I mean, it's side by side with the big book with these directions for the 11th step. But one of the things that he says about our thinking is the judgments that we are always in our minds. I can look out at my yard and the judgment is, oh, my plants are so pretty, but look at the backyard, it sure needs weed eating. That's a judgment. I can look at another person and just do a scan and find some judgments. Some of them are not so good, but some of them are beautiful. But I'm looking at the outside rather than the inside, and that's where I need to be directed to that other person's spirit, their where they're at in their journey, because we're all here in a journey. And one of the things I got from that experience that I just had of just of total self-will, it was just total self-will. One of the things that I got from that was that my ego is always lying to me. It doesn't know that it's ego consciousness or God consciousness. It's one or the other. And That's I was looking for what I wrote on it, but I can't find it, but it doesn't matter. But that's another thing that I do every morning is that I write my dear God letter. And it's not that, I guess it is a discipline, but it's a joy discipline to say, Dear God, thank you for my life. Thank you for my sobriety. Thank you for my brothers and sisters in sobriety. Thank you for my newcomer. Thank you for all of the women that you've put in my life that you allow me to sponsor. Thank you for my new sponsor. Thank you for this day. Thank you for all of the opportunities you give me. That's usually how it has to start because I can't say God without gratitude today. And it's from being disciplined by this 11th step. And, I think that it's probably time for me to wrap up. And I hope that you've gotten something from this. I love you, and it's a privilege to be here with you because I've learned so much from each of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Helen.
We've got a lot we've got a lot of people here, and I am looking forward to the Q&A. While we're waiting for the first hand to go up, hands up, guys. What I really want you to do is, would you spend another moment talking about how you got into the practice of the God letter, and if it's something that you encourage the people that you work with to do?
Sure. I heard Peggy Martin say that when we get here, a lot of us have flit brain. And I have had flit brain, and it hasn't gone away real easily. And, sometimes, my meditation can be good. I just want to share this one thing with you that what I learned from Thomas Keating in his book, and he said, if you're having trouble with meditation, just close your eyes and ask God to introduce himself. Well, I tried that, and guess what? Everything went away. I'm ready for God to come and introduce himself. That has been real helpful. The other thing is, when I couldn't focus on meditation, I could always write. It's one of those places that I can interact with God, get inspiration, catch up on any inventory that I haven't, really talked about. So, it's just been a wonderful, wonderful experience for me to do that daily writing.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Connie, thank you for coming in with a question. You're up.
Hi, Helen. I thank you all. Um I want to know from you, Helen, how much do you incorporate nature into your morning meditation, and how important is communing with nature to your conscious contact to your higher power? That's my question.
Well, that's kind of I don't know what to say about it, but you see, if you look back here, I sit here in the mornings and I get to watch the sun come up and hear the birds and see the feeder and get to one of my favorite pastimes is being in my yard talking to my flowers, because I believe we're all one, and being able to spend time with God in the wonder of nature. Absolutely, Connie. And I love you, girl.
Thank you for the question. Mike, you're up.
Helen, Bubba, happy anniversary, first of all. Congratulations. That took, that made me smile, and I'm sorry for your loss, because that made me sad. One of the things that in the big book where it talks about having just made conscious contact with God, we're not going to be inspired at all times. And, when that first came up in the book, I'm thinking, where did I make conscious contact with God? And then you said something to the effect when you were having a hard time with your prayer life, and I would think that would include your conscious contact, that you did something. Can you expand a little bit upon, because I'm in one of those situations right now where I feel very far from God, and I'm trying to reconnect.
Thank you, Mike.
Well, I can tell you that what has worked for me with any difficult situation, or just a more blah time or a painful time, is working with others, and particularly working with a new person, that and getting to watch God work in their life. And I can't watch God work in their life without knowing that he's working in my life. And my sponsor Gwen, I couldn't go to the same meeting that she went to if I wanted to get a newcomer, because she'd jump over the table to get to that newcomer before I did. So, but if you're having trouble finding a sponsee, I don't mean to go into step 12, but if you're having trouble finding a sponsee, go across town to that meeting that you think is so bad, and that's where you're going to find your newcomer. And Gwen used to tell me, get 10, Helen, and you'll probably keep one. So, that has worked for me.
Thank you for the question, Mike. We're so glad that you're here. We'll see you next week. Helen, thank you for the answer. Ferdinand, I'm so glad you put your hand up. Come on in.
Hello. Thanks, Alice. Thanks for your service. Helen, thanks for your share. Congratulations to you and Bubba on your anniversary. And I appreciate your sharing the quotation from Chuck C as regards to viewing his higher power as dad. That's a real fresh perspective, and I'm gonna borrow that myself. So I'm curious. You guys are celebrating. This is your anniversary. And you both came into Alcoholics Anonymous to work on your drink problem. How soon, when you got in, did you guys realize that working these principles, step 11 in particular, was going to help you guys with your relationship? I mean, 17 years was pretty good, even though you guys were drinking. But now, 40 more years, and you said it was going real well. How soon did you guys realize how much that would help you together with your relationship?
Goodness. I think until we have a spiritual awakening as the result of the steps, we're in a position of hope rather than faith. I hope it's going to work. And after I have, gone through the steps, then I know it works. And that was when we really started having hope for our marriage. when we were drinking, we were getting a divorce every day. You know, I'd take his stuff and throw it out in the yard and tell him I never wanted to see him again. And he'd be backing out the driveway, and I'd go jump on the hood of the car and go, "Oh, baby, please don't leave." And we did that one day at a time, you know. And so for us to go from there to knowing that this guy is my best friend, and he also walks day by day in the path of spiritual progress with me. And he's a good forgiver, because that thing that I told you, that blow up I had, he was the target, I'm ashamed to say. And you know, he has given me what, oh, huh?
Ask our wives.
Oh, yeah, we ask our wives, our friends to join us in morning meditation. And so, you know, that started very early in our relationship, you know, that we would sit down and do prayers and meditation together.
Thank you. Such a great question. Thank you. Marilyn. Come on, Marilyn.
Hey, Alice. Hello, family. My name is Marilyn. I am an alcoholic. And thank you so much, Helen. I just love to hear you share. And congratulations to you and Bubba on your anniversary. You have such a sweet, sweet spirit. And I love your spiritual process. And I just have a quick question. You know, I practiced prayer and meditation constantly. And as you said, conscious contact with this power. You know, and I'm going through a situation that I've been going through the entire time I've been sober. And it relates to my grandson. And I'm following direction because I asked God to direct my thinking. And he's telling me be still, and I'm being still. But what do I do, or what would you suggest when the pain just doesn't go away? I feel like I'm following God's will in my life as it relates to this child, but the pain of not seeing him just doesn't go away. I'm grieving constantly. And this has been going on for quite a while. And so I just love to hear your sweet answer.
Well, I don't know how sweet it is, but you know, when we lost Katie, I was disconnected from God. I didn't know that I was, because I was going to meetings, I was sponsoring, I was doing everything that I knew to do. But the truth was, I hated God, and I didn't know that. I just kept thinking that it was grief. So I got to the day when a drink, I had that the insanity of the second step, where I thought, and I had never had this. I mean, I had these brief thoughts of drinking, but then I would say, "Oh God, that's your business, you know, not mine." But when Katie died, and I had that thought, it was, I heard an old drinking song on the radio, and all of a sudden, I just knew that the only answer for me was to go have a drink. And the thought came to me, God help me. But you know what followed that? Well, you don't need God's help to drink. And that made perfect sense to me. And that's what you call alcoholic insanity. And, you know, getting back to your question, you know, I have to know that I have to be real vigilant about, am I on a good basis with God? Do I trust God's providence for me? And seeing Katie as a spiritual being. You know, that's the other thing Chuck says, you know, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. So if I see Katie as a spiritual being, and I have come to the belief that in her little 7 years, her life was complete. I mean, I can give you story after story of why I believe that, how she incorporated her spiritual life. You know, she was one of our teachers, but you know, so seeing what would to me, when I see a sponsee going through this and we talk about it, it's you know, knowing that we all have a spiritual journey. Each one of us has a spiritual journey. And, you know, I, I can tell you, nobody would have given 10 cents that I could ever change, that I could ever get sober, that I could ever be here with y'all. I mean, you know, nobody would have put any money on me doing that. And, you know, when we see someone we love going through these times, we think that it's hopeless. It's never hopeless. You know, there's always a perspective for us to know that it's part of his journey, part of her journey, and that as a result of that, we can get into a better place of love, unconditional love, of what can I do and what can't I do, and just again, you know, anytime I'm in a spot and I pick up the phone when I don't want to pick up the phone and say hello to a sponsee, and we get together or we talk about whatever's going on, when I come back to my problem, I see it differently.
What a beautiful answer. Marissa, I'm so grateful that you put your hand up. Come on.
Hi everyone, Marissa May, alcoholic. Thank you so much, Helen, for your experience, strength, and hope tonight. I just have a question about, being married to a fellow alcoholic and 40 years in the program, each of you. Are there practices that you each have to help protect the individual journey that you have in AA, or not, or a mix? It depends. Maybe you could share a little about that, please.
Well, so as I said, you know, we listened to, back then it was the tapes, you know, and there weren't any books. We listened to the tapes of Chuck C. And he said, well, so I asked Bubba one day early in sobriety, I said, honey, do you really love me? And you know what he told me? Well, that's none of your business. I was so hurt. And he said, I heard from Chuck that it's none of my business what you think of me. What's my business is what I think of you. And so, you know, that's been a guiding force for me, that, you know, it's what can I bring to my relationship, not what can I get from it. And I see Bubba practicing that as well. You know, we most of the time we are focused on our spiritual lives this way, and then we can come this way. We can't solve our problems this way. It's the same thing as, like I said, about the perspective of coming back after working with someone else. I have a different perspective. And if I have an issue with Bubba and I give it some time, I go to a meeting, I think about something else, then when I come back, I can, you know, our instincts on rampage, that is to me where the seat of ego, you know, my self-esteem, emotional security, all of those things that we have to look at in the fourth step. And if I am being ruled by emotion, I cannot be useful, loving, any of that without causing harm. And so and again, like Bubba said, we pray together. We go to meetings together. Some we go, separately, but we go to meetings together too. And we can I mean, we just live in Alcoholics Anonymous, and it makes it a hell of a lot easier. I don't know what else to say.
Thank you for a beautiful share. Thank you guys for spending your anniversary with